Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Stadium Journey podcast. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget, after the podcast, check out our website, stadiumjourney.com. We are the world leader in sports travel information, reviews of over 2,500 stadiums from all around the world. If you're a social media person, we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and much, much more. Find us at Stadium Journey. Like, share, or follow, right? To find other episodes of the Stadium Journey podcast, simply go wherever you look for podcasts and type in HIAC Talk Radio Network. We'll be there. If you'd rather watch the podcast, you can do that too. Just check out Stadium Journey's YouTube channel. And if you want to be part of our studio audience, join us every other Monday night at 7 p.m. How do you find us there? Just check out Dan's vast social media empire. It'll have directions how to find us. So before we get started, let me introduce everybody. That's what a PA announcer does, right? We got Dave Cotney here. Follow him at ProFan9. Mark Viquez is on the internet at Ballpark Hunter. The above average comedian, Dan Colachico's here, or as sometimes he's known as the other guy. Follow him at DanLaw83. And I'm Paul Baker. Follow me at PuckmanRI. And tonight we are very happy to be joined by Paul Caputo. He is the host of the Baseball by Design podcast. And Paul, in your Twitter bio, or actually it's officially X now, right? But anyway, I still call it Twitter. You mentioned two things that will absolutely endear yourself to this panel. One, you're a baseball ice cream helmet collector. And two, you're from Philadelphia. So just by that alone, you're in good with Dan. So,
okay. I told you that a long time ago.
I don't pay attention to you.
Paul, welcome, and thanks for joining us. And why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Baseball by Design?
Thanks, guys. I'm super excited to be here. Obviously, I follow you all individually, and so this is fun to be here as part of the podcast. Baseball by Design is a labor of love. I've been writing for sportslogos.net for about a decade. Over the years, I've been telling the story of the continent. I used to say the story of America, but I've been featuring some Canadian teams as well. The story of the continent, one minor league baseball team at a time. Just talking about how these minor league teams have these awesome local connections to their communities, and how these team names tell stories. You stitch them together, and you can really paint a picture of a country, of a continent. And I think that it honestly is, in minor league baseball, just so much better there than any other sport, any other major league sport. Minor league hockey does okay with it, but minor league baseball, I think, does the best job of telling the stories of the local communities where they play. Oh, and you asked about Baseball by Design. Sorry. So what I do on Baseball by Design is I talk to teams, I talk to designers, I talk to members of those communities about what their logos and their nicknames mean. Usually try to have someone from the team. Very often we'll have the creator of the logo. Jason Klein from Brandiose has been real generous with his time. Dan Simon of Studio Simon has been real generous with his time as well. He's been in the news recently. Sky Dillon is another designer. Ryan Foose, Todd Radum's been on a couple of times. So I love talking to the designers. That's my background. And then, people in the community. I did an episode on the Kannapolis Cannonballers where I had Dave the Bullet Smith on. He's the Guinness record holder in human cannonballing. So I actually talked about human cannonballing for the Kannapolis Cannonballers episode. I've talked with NASA astronauts. I've talked with Jamie Farr of the TV show MASH, big Toledo Mud Hens fan. So just, try to get interesting people on to talk about these interesting team names.
That is fantastic. That's how we kind of hooked up, because I was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, maybe. I don't know. We talked about the New England knockouts. I mean, I'm got nowhere near the star power of somebody like Jamie Farr, or the world record. I'm interested in the world record holder for the cannonball. What is the world record for the human cannonball?
Oh, God, I don't remember what the actual distance was for this, but he has done human cannonballing at a bunch of, a bajillion places, but among them, minor league baseball stadiums. And he, on this episode of the podcast, he talked about the actual science of it, right? Like getting in the thing and what he has to do when he's up at the apex of the launch to make sure that he actually hits the target. I mean, there's stuff that he has to do. And so he walked me through this. And I literally, I think for about 2.5 minutes was holding my breath as he was telling me how he goes about actually like launching up in the air. And then he's up there and then he's got, this target. And if he screws it up, he's dead. And,
Mm.
it's like, this is the sort of stuff, when you start getting into these minor league baseball logos and nicknames, these stories that people tell. Had the guy from the Marshall Space Flight Center on the Rocket City Trash Pandas episode talk about what it would take to get a raccoon in a trash can into outer space. And so this is, these are the stories these teams tell.
Wow, where do we go from there? I don't know. I just want to end the show and go listen to some of these now. Do you have a nickname that stands out to you, Paul, as a favorite, or some that are just really notable that stand out to you?
It's hard to pick, just one. There are some that I just really enjoy as brands. I really like the Daytona Tortugas. I think that that's one that really established a certain aesthetic for Dan Simon in particular. That was one that I think really put him on the map. I know we've got some Mets fans on the podcast here. The Binghamton Rumble Ponies are a team that like tells such a specific story of that place. Binghamton, New York is the carousel capital of the world. They've got like, I don't know, like 5, 6, 7 like historic carousels throughout the town there. And they, you can like they on the town's website, you can like plan, a visit to the town and hit all 5 carousels like in a certain amount of time. And so this team being called a grandiose brand, being called the Rumble Ponies, their brand is based on the like the horse head, basically, like the wooden horse head from a carousel. Never would have known that about Binghamton, New York, if we hadn't started telling these stories, right? Like, and they were the Binghamton Mets for a long time. I am an outspoken critic of any team that is named for its parent club. I don't want to have that. So, the Rumble Ponies switching from the Mets to the Rumble Ponies, I think, was a great one. In terms of one that I just really love as like a logo and a story, the Albuquerque Isotopes being named for an episode of The Simpsons. They came into existence about 2 years after an episode of The Simpsons called Hungry Hungry Homer, in which Homer staged a hunger strike when he discovered that the Springfield Isotopes, Duff Beer owned the Springfield Isotopes, and they were going to move them to Albuquerque. And he discovered this, staged a hunger strike, and the plan was thwarted. When the team had a a, name the team contest, the Isotopes just ran away with it, and they were the Dukes. The Dukes moved when they got the new team. Isotopes ran away with this. There are connections to Albuquerque for Isotopes, right? Like they've got some research and science centers there. There is a connection to science with Albuquerque, but honestly, it's the Simpsons episode. And if you've ever been, you go there, they've got Simpsons statues all around the ballpark, and they dive deep into this connection to the Simpsons. So there's a ton of them out there that I just absolutely love, but those are a few that jump out. Mark.
Yeah. You were talking about the Binghamton Mets. One thing the Binghamton Mets did was they had a B logo, the B Mets, and I kind of like how they were able to kind of keep the team name, which I'm not a big fan of, but have a different identity. So I did like that B logo a lot compared to the Rumble Ponies. But I live about 90 miles south of Logansport, Indiana, and I think they're nicknamed the Carousel City. Yeah, there it is, Big Binghamton Mets. Like I love that logo.
Mm-hmm.
It's hey, it's a Mets affiliate, but we got a B logo. We're a little different than the Boys and Queens.
That Buddy B logo was created by Guy Gilchrist, who his, I think, most famous creation is the Portland Sea Dogs logo.
Okay.
But he's done a couple of things in minor league baseball. The New Britain Rock Cats were one that he did before they became the Hartford Yard Goats, which is another great story with a connection to a local place, right? A yard goat is a locomotive switcher. They've got the New Haven. What is it? The Hartford, New Haven, New York. It's I've always forget like what order the cities are in there, but it's a very important railroad. The Yard Goats are named for the railroad industry in Connecticut and in Hartford in particular. and then Brandios took that term yard goat for the locomotive switcher and turned it into an actual animal. Those colors, of course, are the Hartford Whalers
Yep.
colors, which is another connection to the local community. Just connection after connection after connection with these teams to their local place.
Yeah, and sometimes when certain logos are created, they hit it right off the mark. Like
Hmm.
Studio Simon, I love a lot of the work they do, from the Savannah Bananas to the Burlington sock puppets. Like when I saw that logo, I'm like, I love it.
Yeah,
That's awesome. And
right.
yeah, I like when that feeling comes, because the name may sound a little corny, but once you see that logo, it's like that space ball that's going to hit a mark with young fans, older fans, and hopefully, divert, not grow into like a brand like Sockville. And if you ever go to a game in Burlington, they have create your own sock puppets for the kids.
I
Just
still
such a
have
fun
mine.
way.
Awesome. I've not gotten to a Burlington Sock
Oh,
Puppets game yet, but I know that the reason for that brand, the reason they're called the sock puppets, is because Burlington obviously is famous for the textile
yeah,
industry.
textile.
Burlington socks are a big part of that town's history. Also, where Kannapolis Cannonballers comes from, because Cannon Mills was the textile plant that existed there that the town was
Mm.
built up around. So that's how Cannon became Cannon Ballers. Kannapolis is actually Cannonapolis, which is where that it was Cannon Mills, then it was Cannonapolis, and now they're the Kannapolis Cannonballers. The Burlington sock puppets, like you say, the tie into
Yeah,
the Burlington socks and the textile industry. So these teams are all telling this story, these stories, these histories.
and
Except for the Savannah Bananas, by the way. That's just the rhyme.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lady who thought that name sounded fun, and
Yeah.
I remember reading that article thinking, "Oh, that is such a dumb name." Well, who came up with this silly name?
Yeah.
I see the logo, and I was like, "Okay, I have to have that hat."
Yeah. Another one that Dan came up with, because Mark, your point about like these teams, sometimes there's a negative reaction, and then they usually fans will come around.
Oh, definitely.
Some of these have been, like you said, just embraced immediately, right? And another one that Dan did recently was when the Rome Braves changed to the Rome Emperors,
Love
Yes.
that
and
one.
they went with the Emperor Penguin. And with the exception of people who were just upset with anything changing away from the Braves to, the change from Braves to anything was
Mhm.
what they were concerned about. The Rome Emperors like logo and nickname, I didn't see a single negative comment about it, right? Like it
No,
was just
no, the
widely embraced.
colors, yeah, everything was almost 100% if you were grading it. It
Yeah,
was it
for
was
real.
quite nice. And I think I remember when they announced they were going to change the name. I think some of us thought they're going to be called the Aqueducts.
Right. The Aqua Ducks, right.
And I thought that would have been an amazing logo.
That would have been
And
good. That
that's
would have been
probably
good.
still on the table sometime in the future.
You would think that there's a what might have been night
What
out
might
there
have been.
as well, for sure. Another one that got pretty universal praise, not as much attention as some of these other ones that have been out there. Certainly not as much as like the Dairy Daddies, but the Paul, your New England Knockouts, that logo from Grant Odell was really well received, and I think that's a terrific logo. Grant Odell doesn't necessarily do a ton of work in minor league baseball, so it's a little bit different from some of these other ones that you see out there, in the world from these other designers.
Right.
But just another one in this most recent offseason that's been really well received.
Talk about the knockouts. That's kind of an interesting story too, because that was their second go at a nickname when they were starting up the team. Because
Yeah.
initially they had the obligatory name the team contest, and the winner was the Chowder Heads. But there were some issues with that. Two issues really. The reaction to it was kind of
Mhm.
not what they expected,
Mhm.
even though it won the name the team contest. And B, there was some copyright issues, so they ended
Hmm.
up pivoting before they even had a logo designed, and went with the knockouts, which, like you were just talking about, uh, is really more reflective of the local history and
Yeah.
their history of championship boxers coming from the city. So,
Well, and you told that story, Paul, very well on on a recent episode of Baseball by Design. That was fun for me to learn that history of that part of the country right there. That was not necessarily a history I was familiar with.
Yeah, because I was talking to some folks in Florence about that, and they didn't know anything about the knockouts. Rocky Marciano or Marvin Hagler, they didn't know what a nor'easter was.
I really wish Nor'easters would have won. That was my
Yeah.
choice, but
That would have been good,
I don't
right?
know how you can do a logo for a Nor'easter storm. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of storm logos out there, though, right? Like,
Mm,
got
true.
the Lake Elsinore storm. You've got the Storm Chasers in Omaha. A lot of there's a lot of sort of weather-based logos out
The
there.
Cyclone, Cincinnati Cyclones hockey.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A
Who were
Absolutely.
once
lot of
known
indoor
as having
football
the worst
teams.
logo in hockey, right? That goalie doing this.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's an interesting one that was sort of panned by fans at first, and so the team ditched it, and now they've come back to it as an alternate. When the New Hampshire Fisher Cats were first launched, they were going to be the New Hampshire primaries, and there was a sort of fan revolt against it, and sort of a small minority of people, I think, but they were noisy, and so the team backtracked and they went with the Fisher Cats, which I think is sort of uniquely boring, right? Like it's just an animal. But then, about 10 years later, they were like, you know what, primaries probably would have been pretty good, and they reintroduced it as an alternate identity for the team, and it's it's pretty popular now.
Yeah, that donkey and elephant logo, that's my favorite one. I wish they had
So
gone
good.
with that. And I actually have some primaries gear in my
Do you?
collection. So,
And they got that Uncle Sam logo too. The sort of the
oh, yeah,
neutral Uncle Sam there.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
Fisher
Paul-
Cats is kind of boring. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Can you think of an example of a team that's maybe gone backwards? They did the big rebrand and they should have just stuck with what they had.
Well, until very recently, I would have told you the Oklahoma City Dodgers were one of those because they reverted to a being named for their parent club. I think that there are a couple that I can think of that I feel like went backwards. Oklahoma City, they were the Red Hawks. Before that, they were the 89ers. The Red Hawks was I thought it was a cool logo. The 89ers tied into the history there. When they were purchased by the Dodgers, they just went back to the Dodgers, and their logos were nice, but they were sort of unremarkable. And I just find it weird to have teams named for their parent clubs playing in other cities, like people walking around in Oklahoma City wearing stuff that says Dodgers on it. This year they are the Oklahoma City Baseball Club or something like that. The reason for that, the reason they didn't go to their new identity, the new identity is not ready yet, and they had a deal with the Dodgers. Basically, when they sold the team, they could play as the Dodgers for 2 more years before they had to ditch the name, and so those 2 years were up, and so they had to go with Oklahoma City Baseball Club, and then we'll see a new brand for them next year. And then another one that I thought that was a backwards move, but then they reversed it was I'm sort of piling on here because no one liked this brand, I don't think, but the Lexington counter clocks.
Nobody liked it from the start.
We've discussed this one, yeah.
So, but they rectified that situation. They were bought by Temerity Baseball, and they immediately brought them back to the Lexington Legends.
It not only went back but improved the logo. I love the new Lexington logo. Logo. I look forward to seeing them this summer.
Their new big Lex is absolutely great. So,
nightmares. Turn it off. Shut it off. Shut it off.
With the Dodgers, do you feel that there's value? Ultimately, who's making the decisions? The owners. So if the Los Angeles Dodgers own, the Oklahoma City minor league team, like, do you think there's value for that, for Los Angeles in expanding their brand, I guess?
I think that's the reason for it. And so I think it's a question of, do you want the minor league team to have a local connection, to have value to the local community, or are you trying to make more Dodgers fans? And so I get that. I'm a Phillies fan, so my Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, they're owned by the Phillies, right? And so are the Reading Fightin' Phils. In fact, I think all of the Phillies minor league affiliates are actually owned by the parent club. None of them have the parent club's nickname. You've got the Lakewood Blue Claws, the Clearwater Threshers, the Reading Fightin' Phils, and then the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. all owned by the Phillies. None of them have the Phillies, name. I'm torn on that question. I think it's a good question. I don't think it's an unfair question. Certainly not out of bounds. For instance, the AAA affiliate of the Cubs is the Iowa Cubs, and they're pretty close to Chicago. That's just a situation in my mind where it's like the Cubs belong to Chicago. I get that you're trying to make Cubs fans in Iowa, and Iowa's not that far away. And look, I don't own the teams, so I can't see their books. I don't know if it does bring, financial value to them. My interest is in telling these stories. You talk about teams that went backwards. The South Bend Silverhawks from many years ago were that was an awesome minor league brand, and they rebranded as the South Bend Cubs. I'd much rather see a team, if we're going to stay in the Cubs family there, I'd much rather see a team like the Tennessee Smokies, which are a Cubs affiliate, and they have like sort of ties to the Cubs in their branding. But they have their own name. They're the Smokies, named after the mountains there. So,
and the thing with the South Bend Cubs, when they switch, their merchandise sales skyrocketed.
Yeah, right.
And they were able to make a logo that was tailor made to some of that font in the South Bend logo. Yep. Towards some of the building signs. But yeah, you're right. Silverhawks, named after
no, thank you. I hate it.
No. I mean, it's a little 90s-ish, right? And it's from that era, and
they could have
updated by now. Kind of like the Greensboro Grasshoppers, right? Like there was a logo that was very much of the 90s. They kept the name, updated the logo, and it's way better now. That probably would have happened to the Silverhawks by now if they had not switched to the South Bend.
Yeah, or you had like the Beloit Snappers. I don't think they ever changed their logo from 1995 when they rebranded, which I wish they would have kept that name. We had a gentleman on here who was trying to not go with Skycarp, but
that's right. That's right.
At some point, and living in Kitchener, and I mean, this is from the hockey side, but having the Kitchener Rangers and Paul being a Boston guy, those are names. They'll never be rebranded.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that the Boston Red Sox are going to redesign their logo,
right.
Or there's no way that the Kitchener Rangers are ever going to become anything else.
The hell is that?
Angry text that. Yeah, see, that was a disaster.
That was the 90s where like the London Knights had that like, Spider-Man logo.
Oh, sorry, Dave.
How old do you think a logo, a brand identity has to get to that classic point where it becomes untouchable?
I think that's a great question. No one has ever asked me that question. I think it's really good.
Wow.
Dave, you're always getting a very good question award from our guest.
Yeah.
I want to raise.
I kind of want to turn this question back on you and ask you if you think I'm gonna throw some logos out there and you tell me if you think they're classic or not. How about the Portland Sea Dogs?
Plain logo. I would change it.
I don't know. I have no connection to Portland or the Sea Dogs, so
I like the logo, but if they updated it, I'm sure that could be a hit with fans.
Okay.
What I like about that logo is as they've changed affiliations over the years, the colors of the logo have adapted with it.
Right. Yeah, they were the Marlins, and then now they're the Red Sox. What about the Montgomery Biscuits?
Love it.
I could see that being refreshed. Yeah,
I'd stick with that.
No. Yeah. Okay.
God.
And that name was hated too when it was first introduced.
It was 2004. I think that one is from. How about the Lake Elsinore Storm?
All right.
Is that the one with the eyes? The two eyes?
That's the two eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that logo.
There it is.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, they think,
that's
badass.
There's
the new one.
No, don't touch that.
No, the eyes logo is classic.
That's awesome.
And on the hat, it is just the two eyes. It's not the
there you go. That's awesome. Oh, God darn it.
As long as your numbers are telling you're still selling merch, I mean, wouldn't that be kind of a barometer of?
Well, I can kind of come at this from another angle. When I worked for the Paw Sox, for years and years and years, their logo on their cap and for everything was just a carbon copy of the Boston logo with a B instead of a B and Pawtucket instead of Boston. In the 90s, they started messing with it and playing with it, and
the polar bear.
What the team said. Well, first there was the P with the arm angle that was physically impossible to do because one arm was like this and one arm was like this. And then they went to the polar bear, which was a big improvement. I like the polar bear. And then they went with the disembodied ankle in the sock.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
So, but they're what the merchandise director at the time told me is like every 5 years or so in the minor leagues, you've got to change things just to drive merchandise sales.
Well, so this is, I think I've come to a realization as I've been talking through this question from Dave here, and I think it's you reach a make or break point where you are either sort of verging on classic, verging on, just being firmly entrenched, or you have to change it because it's going nowhere. The Missoula Osprey, right? Like that logo had been around for like 20 years, and it was either, okay, we got to rebrand it, or we're gonna, just update the logo, or we'll completely change what we have here. I think like if something has been around in minor league baseball for like 15 or 20 years, it either so the Missoula Osprey, they're the Missoula Paddleheads now, a grandiose creation that is based on a moose, and totally fun logo, got a lot of attention, sold a bunch of merch. I do think I was just over the weekend, I was just in
North Carolina,
in Durham. I was in North Carolina. We went to a Durham Bulls game, and it was just
classic.
That logo is never going to change, right? The Toledo Mud Hens are never going to change their name.
Right.
The Carolina. I'm sorry, which one?
The Mudcats. I can't see ever changing.
I talk to me in 2026 about that when they move into the new ballpark.
When they move to Wilson. Okay.
I think there'll be an update there.
I will be very curious to see what they do. It is. I think that's a classic logo that we might see change, right? Like that is a logo that was one of the ones that really established like, oh, you can make money as your own minor league team. You don't just have to be like a feeder for the major league teams. And I think that was, if that changes, it will be kind of a shame because I love the story behind it. It was created by like an illustrator who was a friend of the team's owner. It's got a real distinctive look. The lines could be thickened up. It feels a little dated in terms of the sort of visual aesthetics of it, but I don't know, that name.
Yeah, that name's great.
Is great. The stadium.
Zebulon.
The stadium in Zebulon. We were there it's wild to say this out loud. We were just there just yesterday, and that stadium is it reminds me of going to the Diamond in Richmond, Virginia in the 90s.
I used to think of it as like McCoy Stadium.
Yeah. No, it's a funny story. I was there about 10 years ago, and I was I didn't know there was a game. I thought the game was in Burlington. I got the dates mixed up. So I was going to buy a ticket. There was a bunch of camp kids, and I'm like, I'm not waiting in line. I'll go to the other side. So as I'm walking, I see like this entrance, this door just opens up, and I'm like, let me just walk in here. And there was just a bunch of young interns there smoking cigarettes on.
Next thing you know, Mark's on second base.
So I just walk in there. Nobody says anything to me. And I'm telling my buddy Steve, I'm like, I just walked in. Nobody said anything. He's like, because we're old, Mark. You're in your 30s, They think you probably work for the team. And
I really expected a woman was going to be in the story somehow.
Well, there was some young interns smoking cigarettes, which I thought was kind of weird, but I guess I was in tobacco country. You can still smoke it. I mean, apparently you could still smoke at this ballpark at the time in this certain section. So maybe I just walked through the cigarette section, kind of like at in Lakewood. There's that cigarette section in back of center field where there's like a
major stadium just announced that next season they're going to start.
Oh, that was false. In Detroit?
Yes. Yeah, they're going to allow, because it's open air. They're just going to let it go.
That's true. But
I'm like, since our logic was so well with COVID, why not?
Yeah, but getting back with the Mudcats, I could see that being like updated a bit, sort of like certain teams like will take their logo and just update it slightly, like the Lakers logo or the Knicks logo has been tinkered with in the last few decades. Not horrifically changed, but just all updated. But yeah, I mean that you're right, Paul. That's a logo that comes, I think in the early '90s, 1992, they introduced that Mudcats logo. That's one of the first logos that you're right said, hey, we don't need to be tied in.
Yeah,
we can sell a bunch of hats to people that have never came to our games
with a back page ad in Baseball America. That's how they sold all this. They weren't selling them online. They were selling them with a back page
you're right.
ad.
They did the old fashioned way. They earned
it. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see. And maybe I don't know if Diamond Baseball Holdings buys that team up. Maybe we'll see that. Everything about that team.
Yeah, change. That's the evil word to Zach Beeson. I know he was out there with you guys this weekend. He hates that company. He hates that how they're buying all these teams up.
It'll be interesting to see what they, what impact that has. I mean, obviously, after Major League Baseball sort of exerted its hostile takeover of minor league baseball and cut 43 teams and added 3 teams, and they went from 160 to 120, and they've inflicted this Oatly oat milkers thing on all these minor league teams that have to wear that every single team is wearing the same promotional brand for Oatly brand oat milk. And none of them are really seeing any benefit from it. That's largely just for Major League Baseball's benefit. It's I will be curious to see. Yeah, there's a lot going on in minor league baseball. It'll be real interesting. I don't have any idea what Diamond Baseball Holdings is up to.
World domination.
The thinking in the brain. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Yeah.
So there's a lot changing in minor league baseball right now. My biggest fear, the biggest impact I've seen with all these changes in minor league baseball is that the changes, the new identities, any alternate identities, they have to wait. It's a year and a half. Sometimes talking to these designers who are in the industry, they're telling me like, oh, this, I just saw this thing was released. I finished that project a year and a half ago, and it's just been taking that long to get through all the steps it needs to get through. Whereas the independent, the collegiate summer level teams, they can do these things. They can turn them around in, they can turn them around in a month or two, depending on how quick they can get the design work done.
Yeah, and you're right. The summer collegiate leagues, they may not be playing with a lot of money, but when some of these teams come up with a great logo, it's
and I can fund your team for the whole season. Exactly.
Oh,
yeah. Like look what the Carolina Disco Turkeys are doing with the Yacht Rockers logo that looked like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Chief Wahoo, and then they just
City Camels,
the Hump City Camels that just came out because they've got R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company there. Like, interesting.
Yeah, and they're not even affiliated with any leagues. They're independent.
They're in the Coastal Plain League. They're a summer collegiate summer level team.
Oh, the Disco Turkeys?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I like what you're saying about telling the story with the branding. However, I would say, and I can't say that specifically I found this in minor league baseball. I think I've seen it in Major League Soccer. And it's kind of the bane of logo existence, I think. And that is where every line seems to have some sort of significance. And when they release their kits, it comes with a 25-page
explanation. Yeah, I get
an explanation for each line. I think we talked last podcast about that horrible Dodgers, horrible Dodgers City Connect jersey that had all the confetti, and we jokingly said that each dot represented a person who was moved out because of the building of Dodger Stadium or whatever. But first of all, do you see this happening in minor league baseball where it's just going overboard? And secondly, do you think that that's kind of the future, or it's going to kind of be reeled back?
Dave, it's a great question. I think you do see some of that in minor league baseball. The Asheville Tourists just put out a redesigned version of their Beer City logo, and everyone loved. And I thought this was a great little Easter egg here. The foam on the top of the glass of beer was shaped like the state of North Carolina. that was, everyone loved that. I think there are some logos where there are sort of things hidden in there and people are just never going to see them. I don't actually mind them that much, but I do think that most of them are going to be lost on most viewers. And that sort of age-old question comes up of, when you find an Easter egg in a logo like this, the question is sort of like, okay, so what? And because I've had that conversation with like most people have seen in the FedEx logo, there's an arrow pointing to the right, between two of the letters. Most people have seen in the Baskin Robbins logo, there's a 31 embedded in the letters B and R.
Everybody makes a big deal of the Hartford Whalers logo with the H in the middle.
Listen, nobody cares. Just because nobody cares about the Boston Bruins spokes, okay? Look for a wheel.
Why are there 5 spokes, Paul? Why aren't there 6 spokes?
Because Boston is the hub of hockey.
Oh, the hub of hockey.
Yeah, but why 5? Why not 6 or 7 or 4?
You're going to have a hockey logo expert on to talk about that one.
There are not 5. Wait a minute. There's got to be a Boston logo here somewhere.
You've left my wheelhouse here. The counterform H in the Hartford Whalers logo is brilliant, right? Like, and that's an example where it's like one thing in a logo, right? Like that the whale tail and the W, and then a lot of designers say negative space. I find that to be unnecessarily pessimistic. I prefer the term counterform. But the H in the Whalers logo, I think is brilliant. I think these little things that are plugged into logos that people find and they can sort of have that in their back pocket. The Toblerone logo has a bear hidden in it, right? There's a lot of these out there that have like fun little Easter eggs. I'll tell you the thing in minor league baseball that I'm curious to see where this goes. A lot of these teams obviously have their primary identity, and then they have a bunch of alternate brands. I love the alternate brands. I think that's a great way for teams to make some money, and they have to make money. It's a great way for them to make money without changing their brand altogether. The thing that I worry about sometimes when I see them are these minor league teams that have like 15 marks in their primary suite of logos, and it's all the primary suite of logos. It's all one team name, but they've got like 4 different brands embedded in one brand, and they're trying to do 1,000 different things with one brand, not all in one logo, but with like 15 different logos. Like, this is our like 7th alternate. We've got 2 primaries, a couple of alternates, and then 7 other cap logos. And so that's more my concern rather than designers trying to embed a lot of Easter eggs in there. And I will say that if you think of Studio Simon and Brandiose as being like the 2 major players in minor league baseball, neither one of them is really big on Easter eggs. They're not burying a lot of that stuff in there. So I don't worry about it too much in minor league baseball.
So I was going to actually ask you a hockey question, but since that's not your wheelhouse, so we'll switch it to baseball. So seeing as you're,
wait a minute, how many spokes are in the Boston B? I want to know.
8. There are 8.
Who cares?
So that means there's 4 because one is just going north-south. Like,
oh yeah, well yeah, there's 4 lines across. Yes.
Okay. All right.
So seeing as you're the expert now, I was going to ask you about the Utah hockey team, but then you brought up Oklahoma City, so I'm going to ask you about Oklahoma City. So
all right,
they're coming to consult with you. So what do you want to see in a new brand for the Oklahoma City fill in the blanks?
89ers.
Well, I think it was Paul who was whispering just now.
No,
I think
that was not me.
That was me. 89ers, yeah.
I think that's actually where we might see them go.
Really?
I think that they may see the success that the Lexington Legends had reprising, granted a brand that had only been gone for 1 year.
Ooh,
my understanding is that that Oklahoma City fans have been clamoring for the 89ers for 2 iterations of their team name. When they were the Red Hawks, there was 1,000, they said they used to get people on social media all the time commenting that they wanted the 89ers back. And then, when they switched to the Dodgers, people weren't clamoring for the Red Hawks. They were still clamoring for the 89ers.
Wow.
So specifically to Oklahoma City, I would really, I think that nostalgia is going to be something that they can really play off of. The city itself, I mean, I've been to Oklahoma City twice. In terms of the sort of the heritage around that city, I would need to dig pretty deep into into the heritage that surrounds the city to see what are the things that people really are into there. I think the reason that the 89ers are so well loved is that like westward expansion is a big part of of their heritage there. That they've got a very strong
land rush. Is that what it was called?
I think so.
The
Yeah.
Oklahoma
When
land rush, yes.
when they just raced. If
Yes,
you get there
the
first, you get
Sooners.
some land. Go.
Right. And if you left early, you got shot in the back. And so
that's quite an amazing bronze statue there if you've ever seen it. Well, series of like 20 bronze statues, but yeah, it's pretty awesome.
yeah. So they have, much to my chagrin, they've got a lot of Joe Carter heritage there, right? Like he was from there. What's the is it Sonic? I think Sonic, the burger place, was is headquartered
Oklahoma
there.
City,
So maybe
yeah.
there's some with that. They've got like
Right
a real
across the
strong-
street from the ballpark.
Yep. They've got the headquarters right there. A lot of brick, right? Like there's Bricktown is the name of the neighborhood that it's in. So I think that I could see, there's a lot of sort of fun stuff they have going on. If I were advising them, I think I would steer them towards doing something with the 89ers. I think people would. I think that Oklahoma City baseball fans would really celebrate that. I also think Mickey Mantle was from there, wasn't he?
Yes.
Well, Johnny Bench is from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I learned something new. I
Yeah,
didn't care where Joe Carter was before, and now I have to know he's from Oklahoma City. Ugh.
Now you hate Oklahoma City too.
Now I hate Oklahoma City, and they've had enough crap.
I know. I pulled up to the ballpark and made a left on Joe Carter Way. I was like, come on.
Paul, do you think a similar thing might be going on in Syracuse anytime soon?
I don't. I think that's a good example of a team going backwards that I didn't think of there.
Yes.
That I don't envision. They're not. If Diamond Baseball Holdings owned them, I would say yes, but I don't think they do. I don't think that was on that list. And so I think we're stuck with the Syracuse Mets for a while.
Interesting. The Chiefs does not allude to Native Americans. That alludes to trains. Actually, we were talking about train logos before.
Yeah, they steered away, as it were, from the Native American imagery there. So,
I did like that logo though when they were with the Blue Jays. That
with the train coming out of the sea.
No, not that one. The one before with the chief head.
It did have like sort of a Native American theme to it.
I mean, I don't know. That would be offensive now, but
it was more
like just.
I don't know how to describe it. It was very geometric.
Yeah, geometrics. Some from the 80s.
Yeah, like real illustrative. Yeah, it looked like it was for something like from an Atari cartridge.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I like that. I would like to wear that on a hat. I know they sell that, but just like the Memphis Chicks had a Native American imagery. I understand not wearing that anymore, but oh yeah, that's a city connection that's coming up. Take away the black, you got a great uniform there.
Yeah.
That black's terrible.
All right, Paul, you're right. Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
But you're right. The Syracuse Mets. I would, and I wrote an article for Chris Creamer several years ago that talked about how when the Mets had affiliates in the 60s and 70s and 80s, they would take their iconic skyline logo and update it for the town they're in. Use their skyline.
Yeah.
And I liked how they did that. And I'm thinking, my God, Syracuse, that's not what you do. This logo here, like use your skyline.
Right. And there's a lot of teams that love putting their state outline in their minor league baseball logo. That's just a super popular thing for minor league teams.
I hope they did. I hope that was like the owner's, grandkid or 10-year-old son who came up with that.
Like the Lake Erie Crushers, where the owner of the team was, it's like, well, who designed the logo? And she said, well, my husband's nephew's wife. And I was like, that's awesome. And it turns out she's an illustrator who lives in Los Angeles, right? Like she's a
well, the Crushers logos. amazing.
It's so much fun, right? Like, look at it.
I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, the link.
That's where the D3 baseball championships are being played right now.
Huh.
The what baseball championships?
Division 3 NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that's that one team the college doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, Birmingham Southern.
Wow.
The school closed down, but the team's still alive.
There you go.
So that does not look like the CN Tower. Come on. Not even close.
Well, if you ask Mike Milbury, it's a Space Needle, so what does it matter?
Yeah.
It also doesn't look like the Space Needle, so
I think the biggest problem with the City Connect is that they're trying to do it for every team. I think it works for some teams, but I think they're trying to shoehorn it into every single market, and it doesn't work for every single market.
So they're so bad.
Yeah, I just
90% of them are bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, everybody
Even the
complains
Phillies
about.
ones, I'm like,
this one's terrible. Well, they're all pretty terrible. So, is one going to come up that's going to be universally praised?
I think Miami gets a lot of love for theirs.
Yeah.
I like the Serpientes in Arizona.
You know
I like
what's
Colorado.
funny? You know what's fun? That's garbage. You know what's
I
funny?
hate Colorado. I live in Colorado and I hate it.
I like it. It looks like the license plate.
It does look like the license plate.
Oh, good.
I
New
like
Jersey team
the
will have peach
Toronto one.
jerseys.
If that's true, I like that one the best.
I would like that if you took away the black. I don't like the black
What's
and
wrong with
royal blue.
Well, put red in there. Oh, wait.
That'd be a lot better.
They're the Blue Jays, Mark.
Well, Canada.
Yeah, what color's a Blue Jay? Blue and black.
It's blue and black.
I like the White Sox one.
South side, yeah. And Wrigleyville's nice. I like Kansas City's,
That's
but
fine, yeah.
It's like the Mets. There's parts I like and there's parts I don't like.
Right.
See, that's a brilliant jersey.
In Philadelphia, I like the hat. I think the hat.
looks
great.
Don't like the jersey.
No.
So I have a podcast question for you. How difficult do you find doing a totally audio podcast talking about visuals?
Yeah. That's a good question. My excuse, what lets me get away with that, I think, is the fact that what I'm really trying to do on the podcast is tell the stories of the communities, like why they're called what they're called. And so it's not really a graphic design podcast. It's a storytelling podcast. And I think that, every once in a while I find myself trying to describe a logo and then I'll just have to say, you know what, just go Google it. But for the most part, I'm trying to tell the stories of why these teams are called what they're called, what it means to the local community. So it's not as hard as it sounds like when I first came up with the idea.
Well,
Dave, I love how you've added. I love
ahead.
how you've added like other pieces to it. So I was doing homework, and
at least one of us did.
Is it Ranger Amy?
Yeah,
who comes on and talks about like whatever animal it is, and I learned all about jackfish.
Yeah.
I listened to the Shuckers one where you call the restaurant or whatever.
That was
and learned how to shuck oysters and stuff. I was like,
that was such a happy accident too, like because it turned up, she had grown up, like the manager of this oyster restaurant had grown up like shucking oysters as a kid, and she could just tell me like, oh yeah, here's everything that we do. There was that's been fun for me, is to to be able to get people who are subject matter experts, might not even necessarily know something about baseball, right? Like I've asked people to come on the podcast and they've been like, I don't know anything about baseball. And
that's how I got on.
When I did the Dairy Daddies, right? Like I had someone who worked for a dairy and could talk about like the whole idea of cows being sexy, right? Like it's like so
it sounds like a different podcast, Paul.
Well, the Dairy Daddies are a different logo, so that is definitely one. But I appreciate that comment, because it's definitely one of the things I want to do is have folks who are who can talk about the subject matter and get really deep into I had someone from the Cedar Rapids Colonels episode. I had someone who was a conservation educator in Iowa who could just talk about, here's the relationship that our landscape has with corn, basically. And she's not a baseball fan, but it was, it's interesting. It's a way for me to learn about these places and to understand, on a really deep level, why these teams are called what they're called.
So how much research do you do into like a topic? Because like, with me, I just contact a team and I want to talk about the stadium experience,
Hmm.
sometimes the logo. But I feel like you just sent an email to a team. You're trying to reach folks who are not necessarily baseball fans. Uh, how do you like? What's your method of getting those people to
Well,
to ask them first? And how many of them are like, yeah, sure, I'll come on.
most people, once you reach them, are pretty amenable to coming on, right? Like it's we were talking before we started recording, Mark, about folks who
Yeah.
we'll reach out to and then just don't hear anything back. um I think that is the sort of the biggest challenge, that people will just be like, I don't know who this guy is and I don't know what this podcast is.
Yeah.
But if I contact a museum or a nature center
Okay.
or a historical site or something like that, park service folks, national park service folks, are almost always willing to come on and like talk about the work that they're doing. um so that is usually what I will try to do, is try to find someone who is involved in speaking to the public anyway. So like Ranger Amy, you were talking about, her whole thing is wildlife education, and so to have her come on the podcast and just talk about all these different animals, and she's a baseball fan too, so she can talk about like, oh well, here's what would make this animal a good baseball player, uh, you know that's and this is why it's a good mascot for a baseball. This is a really good jumper, and so they could catch fly balls in the outfield or that sort of thing. So we try to make those connections. But usually, I mean, the method is to contact people who like talking to the public anyway. So this is going to be tour guides and museums, and people, park rangers at the National Park Service, and that sort of thing. So um, my experience is that they are usually happy to talk to me. The I will say, the guy who is the director of a very important program, and I'm flaking on the name right now of the program, but a very important program with the Marshall Space Flight Center. He's like the lead engineer for the program that is supposed to bring NASA astronauts back to the moon in 2025 or 2026. I had to go through like 5 levels of security and do a pre-interview and like set it all up through like their public relations folks and everything. And then the guy ended up being like the nicest guy in the world. He played college ball, before he started working for NASA. When I was in Alabama on a road trip, we went to a game together, and he gave us a tour of the Marshall Space Flight Center. Right, like so, um, getting to getting to meet these people like that has been really incredible for me.
Oh, that's awesome. So, all right, Paul. Before I know you're on a time crunch, so you are on the Stadium Journey podcast after all. So I know you've done a lot of traveling to a lot of these cities. Is there a ballpark or a city that you've visited in your travels that really stands out as one of your favorites?
So I think they're beating my Phillies right now, or they just beat my Phillies right now. So
Good.
I hesitate to to say
They,
this.
they beat my
No, no,
Mets.
no. It's over. It was 8-4.
8-4 was the final score
Oh,
there.
it's
So
over.
there, look, we got it. Um,
I'm on
but
top of it.
In the majors, San Francisco is an absolutely beautiful ballpark. I really want to get to Pittsburgh. I've never been to Pittsburgh.
Wow.
I'm a big life list guy. I have a life list of all the ballparks I've been to. So from majors down to collegiate summer level, I've been to about 105 ballparks. Just got done a road trip to North Carolina this past weekend. If I were talking about minor league ballparks, some that I've really enjoyed, I loved Albuquerque. Obviously, Charlotte is classic. Durham is classic. Unfortunately, the Salt Lake Bees are not going to be playing there anymore, but Smith's Ballpark in Salt Lake City, this incredible backdrop. So, I don't have one where I'm just like this one's my absolute favorite. I would just go there every single time. I like to get to new ballparks.
Mm.
I live in Colorado. I'm not a Rockies fan per se, but Coors Field, we're very lucky to have Coors Field here. That is a beautiful ballpark, even if the team is not always highly competitive.
Indeed, indeed.
Well, hold on. I got to tell you something about Coors Field. I talked to a police officer. He said that's the only ballpark he was unable to sneak a gun into. Okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Good to know.
I
Good to know that Denver's doing their job.
Right, exactly. But they're real good about they let you bring in outside food, which is not true at every ballpark. I mean, that's a big amenity for me, because we very often will go down there and we'll go out to lunch or dinner beforehand, and we'll have leftovers, and we can just bring our leftovers into the ballpark and we finish them during the game, right? Like, so that's a really good customer service thing.
Yeah, I think that San Francisco does that as well, from what I remember. But
usually it's got to be prepackaged and sealed and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't bring drinks in that are open.
So
so unfortunately, that question is one that I struggle with all the time, because I'm sure as soon as we hang up here, I'm going to be like, I should have mentioned, such and such, right?
It happens.
My experience is that most Major League Baseball, you're really splitting hairs when you're comparing, the top Major League Baseball stadiums to one another. They all have great things in them. I have been to both Tampa Bay and Oakland, and I can say pretty unilaterally that Tampa Bay is the worst stadium in Major League Baseball, and it is
than Oakland. Oh my god,
worse than Oakland. Worse than Oakland.
See now Oakland. When I see it on TV, Oakland. I don't get disgusted. But when I see the Tampa Bay stadium, I'm just like, ugh.
Come on, Dan. If anybody would appreciate a Tampa Bay Rays game in August at Tropicana Field, it would be you.
It's not even the dome necessarily, though. Like, when you're out in the concourse, it's like a narrow hallway, and you don't know you're at a baseball game, right? Like, you can't. There's no evidence that there's a baseball game going on if you're out on the concourse. Like, it's completely sealed off from the stadium.
Well,
they've got these little tiny like scoreboards in there. There's like no scoreboard. If they get a rally going and they turn on the make noise sign, and you've not been paying close attention, you have no idea what the count is, no idea what the score is. It's like, because they only have like 3 signs, and they put, once make noise goes up, all the other information is
Which
gone.
noise am I supposed to make? Happy noise or mad noise?
Right. So the dome, the dome is what it is, right? But the rest of the ballpark experience is also terrible. So maybe that's a really just pessimistic, angry way to answer that question.
It looks like you're in a sweat box. It just looks horrible.
It is so cool. It is like temperature cool wise. It is not a sweat box at all.
Absolutely not true. That's demonstratively not true, Dave.
Have you been?
Have I? I can read.
It is cool. It is air conditioned.
Well, yeah, and we sat out in the bleachers in Oakland. When I was in Oakland, we were out in the bleachers. It was crazy. It was an afternoon game. Oh no. The Rays are cool, right? Like, to see the Rays, that's fun. I also saw a game in Montreal before the Expos left, and
now that place sucked.
That was also a bad stadium.
Yeah, that was bad when you had 8,000 people at a game. I was at Gary Carter's last game. That was quite the experience. But other than that, when Eric Gagne was still a starter for the Dodgers, they had like 15,000. We're like, whoa, what's everybody doing here?
That's because he's French.
Yeah, well, that's why they came out.
All right. So, Paul, before we let you go, do you want to get a chance, take a minute, and plug your site and your podcast and anything else you want to plug, even if it's even not related?
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm on Twitter. That's sort of where I'm most active. The handle is Count2Baseball, because it was originally supposed to be a companion piece to the Countdown to Spring Training Facebook page, which is not really super active because I don't do much on Facebook anymore. But the podcast is Baseball by Design, and it comes out every Tuesday. I'm working on tomorrow's episode right now. Not right now at this moment, but before we got on and after I get off, I'll be working on tomorrow's episode on the Boise Hawks. And then also I got started with all this writing for sportslogos.net. Chris Creamer was gracious enough to give me a shot to write for him, and I've been enjoying doing that for about a decade. And should definitely check that out.
Absolutely. Chris is a friend of the podcast. We've had him on before as well.
Yep. Yeah, he's a good guy, and he's the service he provides for baseball fans is an important one, or sports fans, I should say.
All right, Paul. So
you won't hear him say anything bad about Joe Carter.
You sure won't.
Well, at least, see, Paul, I knew you and Dan would have something you could connect on, and
there you go.
We didn't talk
about. I
didn't
think it would be your hatred of Joe Carter, but hey, there you go.
Technically, I didn't say anything bad about Joe Carter. I said I hate him.
Right. I did ask for Jimmy's on my ice cream helmet Sunday at the Durham Bulls game, and they looked at me like I was from Mars.
Strange.
I had no idea,
Yeah,
and I realized.
Are they sprinkles there?
Yeah.
I asked for Jimmy's out. I can't dox myself, but out where I live, and they were like, "Yeah, okay." I was like, "All right, cool."
Yeah.
Sweet.
My understanding is Boston, Philly, and Pittsburgh are your Jimmy's spots, and everywhere else there's sprinkles.
That's amazing how those three cities,
Yeah.
have adopted this name.
Paul, you should have seen the look on my now wife's face the first time I said water ice.
Water ice.
She stopped dead in her tracks and looked at me and said, "What the is water ice?"
Is that Italian ice? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's Italian ice. Yeah,
Italian
I'm not
ice,
trying
but
to
they call
say
it-
it. I said water ice.
It's water ice. We were at the Jersey Shore. I go to Ocean City, New Jersey every summer with my kids, and they can't take the Philly accent. They're just like, every time they hear water, they just roll their eyes. And the lifeguards had called everyone in out of the water, and they were everyone was sort of standing there around the lifeguard stand, and they were trying to figure out what was going on, and the lifeguards had sort of disappeared for a minute, and so there was like this 10-year-old kid who I swear looked like Smalls from The Sandlot, and he's standing there just holding court, and he goes, "Do not go in the water. There are sharks in the water. You will be killed instantly if you go in the water." And I was rolling, and I have quoted that kid more times. "Do not go in the water. You will be killed instantly if you go in the water." So I was very pleased when the Iron Pigs did their water ice promotion. That was obviously, and I do have a T-shirt that says Clearwater on it from the Clearwater Threshers.
I don't have the Clearwater one, but I do. The moment that Lehigh Valley announced that this was happening and they had that shirt on sale that was just
Fantastic.
a picture of the water ice, I bought it the second it was on sale. Boom.
Lehigh Valley's salute to Philly Knights are always great.
I still have
Lehigh Valley the one doing the pork roll and Taylor ham game?
No, that's a Jersey team.
That's is it the Miners or the Jackals? One of them.
The Jackals. I still have the Lehigh Valley cheesesteak hat.
That's a great one. Some debate whether it was the Fresno tacos or the Lehigh Valley cheesesteaks that started the whole food frenzy.
Yeah, you're right. I always thought it was Fresno.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
There it is. Taylor ham versus pork roll.
Well, you know what I
Dan,
love
me
about
and you need to be at that game.
You know what I love about this graphic the most is right in the center. It says Taylor pork roll.
Hey, but blame Teddy Roosevelt for his ridiculous rules and changing names back in 1906.
Paul's got to go. I've been listening to Paul the whole time, going, I can hear that. Yep, there it is.
Yep. All right,
he's popping in and out.
Well, guys,
I do it. Well, Kelly, my wife, hates it because I do editing and producing for a Philly-based podcast, and she put your headphones on. Oh, my headphones? All right, I'll get my headphones on.
I'm eating a hoagie.
Yeah, leave me alone.
Which
we're getting a Wawa out here in Indiana.
Oh man, I just went to my first ever Sheets. I felt like I was in enemy territory.
Don't. You're a traitor.
Yeah. No, I know. I was in enemy territory.
Terrible.
Ed Rivera brought me there.
Ed, you know better.
Right. Dan, am I allowed to ask which Philly-based podcast that is?
Yeah, Talking 2 and 5.
Okay, there you go. All right.
Talking 2 and 5 on Instagram, on YouTube, and more active on YouTube now because of me.
There you go.
All right.
Awesome.
We'll give anybody a shameless plug. We don't care.
We just had Jordan Mailata getting butchered by thousands of chickens, and I made it.
Perfect.
And he reacted to it, and I was like, well, that's it. My day's made. We can move on.
Perfect.
All right, Paul. I guess we'll let you go because I know you got bigger and better things to do at the moment. Well, maybe not better.
Bigger and better than minor league baseball? I don't know about that, but,
real, let's call it real life stuff then.
There you go. Exactly.
Don't sell yourself short, Paul.
So thanks for joining us, Paul. This was a lot of fun.
This has been so much fun. Always love talking to minor league baseball, and you guys are the best. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Anytime.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Paul, thanks. And we'll hang up on. Yes, he has so much fun when he comes in. Yeah, I was listening to him going, "Yep, I understand."
All right, so that's about since Paul already left us. Let's give everybody else a chance to promote their stuff. Dan, first of all, man, thank you so much for riffing as quick as you can through all those minor league logos that we were
I was
trying to
about
bring
to
up.
say, like, Dave asked him the question, and I was like, "How do you do it?" Like this. You do it like this. You gotta have.
You do it
That's
like
why-
this.
You
Yeah,
do
but
it
he's
right,
all
like this,
audio.
like this. No,
Yeah,
I know
all
that.
audio.
Yeah, I know.
But
No,
anyway,
but
go ahead.
the new podcast that joined the network. I was going to transition right into it, Paul.
Do it.
The new podcast that joined the network, which is the Shadowcast, Shadow Moses 112, Shadow Moses 112. It's a video game reference. Is about toy creation and toy collecting and 3D printing, and that is all visual. But what I do is it's one of my friends, started it, and what I offered him, I was like, dude, takes 5 extra minutes. I can get rid of the silence. I can do it live with the pictures and bring up everything while you guys are talking about blah, blah, blah. And it works exactly like this. Rapid fire, boom, boom, boom. I only hit the button wrong 3 times. Again, I do producing and social media management for Talking 215 podcast. That's Talking, no G, Talking 215. There wasn't a lot of activity during the last game because we were getting smacked, and it's okay. We're only still 6 games ahead of everybody. It's fine. I'm not panicking. You can follow me liking the Toronto Blue Jays City Connect jersey at DanLaw83, and I mean that. I was like, that's great. I like that one. So the Mets and the 2 teams that I have some of the most disdain for have my favorite City Connect jerseys because ours is crap.
Hey, I can sympathize because, man, some of my favorite jerseys out there, uniforms out there, are some of my most hated teams. So
yeah,
there's no accounting for taste, as
yeah,
I
and
tell my
Paul,
wife all the time.
if you didn't see it at the beginning, I also did this. Really good at this.
MC.
I'm getting really good at this.
Watching you play with this, Dave, it's like watching the.
Did you choose the number of dots there? Like, do they represent something or?
Yes, actually, it represents the amount of years we've been on and the amount of teams we've talked about and the amount of jerseys we've said suck.
That's a lot of dots.
That's a lot of dots.
A lot of dots. They're called dipping dots.
Lot of dots there.
A lot of dots.
All right, Mark, where can our listeners follow you? And do you have any stadium journeys planned?
Yeah, people can follow me at YouTube. I have close to 11,000 subscribers. Check out my adventures and little kickball shorts as well. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Tomorrow night, I'll be at the Indiana Fever game, checking out Caitlin Clark. Picked up tickets for $2 a piece, so that seems awfully too cheap.
You might be sitting like on the roof.
I think I am sitting on the roof, but that's okay. It's $2, and I'm okay with that. So I figured, why not? Let's check this out, do a review, and call it a night. So
Nice.
yeah, I'll be at the Fever game, and I'm trying to get to the Chicago Red Stars game. That's a team in the National Women's Soccer League. They're going to be playing at Wrigley Field on June 8th. So I'm hoping to do that. A lot of stuff's going on around that time, so I'm trying to make it all work. And if that happens, I'll also be at the White Sox, probably with $2 tickets as well, the way they're playing. So yeah, check it out. Stay tuned.
Awesome. Dave, where can our listeners follow you, and what kind of stadium journeys you got on the agenda?
$2 for the White Sox. That might be overpaying.
Yes.
That's like the old joke that goes around. Somebody broke into my car, and I had 2 Mets tickets on the seat, and they put 4 more.
You know what? That's all I'm paying for, $2 to see them, blow leads in the 9th. Okay, go ahead.
Oh.
You can follow me at Profan9, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Tomorrow covering the Whitby Warriors of junior lacrosse, and hoping on Thursday to get down to the Welland Jackfish.
Nice.
And possibly doing some more junior lacrosse, the Toronto Beaches, before heading to Indiana for my son's tournament. So you can follow that at Profan9.
Yeah, we'll check out some games.
Check out some Ontario Nationals. There's over 200 teams in this tournament. I don't know where the heck they're all going to be, but
is it round robin?
There's 80 in our division. There's 85 teams. So yeah, round robin.
Round robin. Be there for a little while. All right, let's see. For me, follow my stadium journeys on Twitter or Instagram or wherever at PuckmanRI. My stadium journeys this summer and for the entire summer, except for one glorious week of vacation, I will be at Campanelli Stadium behind the PA microphone for either the New England Knockouts or the Brockton Rocks. So Wednesday night is opening night for the Brockton Rocks. They're in town this week, and then next week the Knockouts come back home, and I don't know who we're playing, but it's somebody. So again, PuckmanRI. And remember, you can find all of our stadium reviews, news items, and other feature stories on our website, stadiumjourney.com. We're on social media at Stadium Journey. For audio versions of the Stadium Journey podcast, go wherever you look for your favorite podcast. Type in HIAC Talk Radio Network. You'll find us too. And we're going to be one of your favorites, I promise you. Video simulcast of the podcast on Stadium Journey's YouTube page. And if you want to be part of our live studio audience, we record every other Monday night, 7 Eastern, approximately. Just go to Dan Law 83, any of Dan's social media pages, and you will find instructions. Very simple to find. We'll be back in 2 weeks from today. What's that? June 11th. I hope I'm getting that right. Joe Robertson is closing in on visiting his 800th ballpark. So I'm sure he'll have a story or two to tell. So as always,
10th.
What's that?
June 10th.
June 10th. Joe Robertson, 800 ballparks. I think that's we've all traveled quite a bit, and I think he's got us all beat if we add all our totals together. So as always, everyone, thank you for your support. Thanks for listening. Thanks again to Paul Caputo for joining us. For Dan, Mark, and Dave, this is Paul wishing you all safe journeys, close games.